and sharing screen. Go. So what we're going to cover in the next probably 20 to 30 minutes is the new pricing structures that we've got in place. So allowing you to lend per hour, per week. We also already have daily and per borrow, but we've made some slight changes to the way that works. Show you how these pricing methods work when you're extending a loan and how they relate to late return fees, how they relate to maximum loan periods, and of course buffers between loans as well if you've got an hourly or a weekly item. And then the concept of block pricing. So whether you want to introduce different ways of pricing for some items and not others. And then do we need the concept of a minimum loan period? And we're going to talk about that because we want to introduce simplicity where possible. So every library's got different ways of doing things, and we've got hundreds of libraries all over the world. But we need to figure out how to not produce a platform that's got 1,000 different settings. So while we can just put settings in for things, we'd rather not if simple actually solves the need. Cool, so we're going to jump to the demo. So here I've got two different screens on the same account. We've got the admin on this one, and then we've got the members view, if you like, on this one. It's just a demo library. So the first thing we'll do is we'll look at the settings, loans and reservations page for the admin side of things. And you can set up your normal or your default borrowing fee, and then you can override this on a per item basis, and that's what's new. So here, for example, you could choose days, hours, weeks, or per borrow. So per borrow used to be a separate setting that we've now folded up into this one here. And for this particular library demo, we'll come back and change this. It's £4 per 7 days. And for those of you overseas, of course, it can be dollars or yen or whatever you're using. You can also set the maximum loan period, and that enforces that for members. When you're booking on behalf of a member, as a staff member, then you're not restricted to that. It does remind you, gives you a little warning, but you're not forced to limit the loan to that. What we've also introduced is that being a hard stop. So previously, a user could borrow for a period and then continue extending beyond that loan period maximum. That is now a maximum, unless you're admin. So that's something that you guys might want to use or might want to say, that doesn't work for me. So have a think about that when we come to extensions. We're going to look at buffers. So we can actually now have a separate buffer for different items, and we'll come on to why that might be useful later. And otherwise, that's really it. That's what we're going to focus on. So let's add a new hourly item just to show you what hourly booking looks like. So we'll add a loan item and we'll call it hourly, and let's call it, it's going to be just £1 per hour, essentially. What else do we need? We don't really need to fill much in for this demo, other than showing you that this is the new block here. So the default library is £4 or $4 per 7 days, the maximum loan period. But we can actually say this item is £1 per 1 day. No, sorry, 1 hour. If you wanted to enforce a maximum loan period for this specific item, you could do. And if it's a really high value item that you want to get back, you might say, you know, I can only rent this out for 72 hours, something like that. So we'll say max 72 on there, just for demo purposes. And then we'll have a look at that on the member side. So it shows per hour. And in fact, if we go to the list of items in this category, we can see this item is per hour, this item is per week, this item is per 14 days, this is per 6 hours. And that's the extra flexibility we've now got, is you can really choose per item or per category of items. I think one of you mentioned that you might run a tool library and a toy library within the same Lend Engine platform, but toys would have a different lending method perhaps than tools, and this allows that flexibility. So let's have a look at the members view. You know, it's essentially the same, isn't it? And there's our new item. It's £1 per hour. Let's go to borrow or reserve that. It shows the maximum here. Because I'm a member, I'm limited to that maximum of 72. That should be 72 hours, I believe. Let's see, why have that not come through as 72 hours? I think that should be 72 hours. So if your item is set to hours, the maximum loan period is intended to be 72 hours. And I think that makes sense. So if you disagree with that, let me know. That looks like something we need to change before releasing. So this item is available across 3 different sites, which is why we've got 3 different sets of times here, 3 different colors. It's quite a lot of information to digest here. Most libraries don't have this level of complexity. But what we've changed is the default pick time, if you like, is more obvious to the user. So for this site, the library site, which is open from 9 AM to 5 PM, because we're choosing the pickup time, it gives us our pickup time as the choice. And then if I click that, it gives me the default period of 1 hour because this item is paid per hour. But actually, if I want to extend it to 2 hours, I could take it to 10 o'clock. Oh, sorry, that is 1 hour, isn't it? What a dafty. That's 2 hours. So it's £1 per hour, fairly straightforward. Let's say we're going to roll forwards and borrow it for 24 hours. So I'll choose a different day. You see now it's giving us the return by time. So that's no change from normal, other than it's just easier for the user to see the time of day that it's due back by. This library is not yet set up with a changeover time, and I'll turn that on in a second so you can see how that might work. So from 7th 9 to 8th 5 PM, 32 hours. Pretty straightforward. It's £1 per hour, £32. And that is as simple as it needs to get, really, with an hourly item. What we can do is actually show you the per hour booking. So this is a week view. If I go back to this item and I restrict it only to being available from, let's say, the library site, then that gives us a bit more context and it flips us to a week view. You know, we're now looking at an item that might be a laptop lent out to a teacher for a university course, or something that might be per hour, or something like a bike trailer that might be lent for an afternoon. And now what you can do is you can actually book certain time slots. So you could say, right, well, it's going to be from 11 till 3, that kind of thing, 4 hours at the basket. So that's another view for hourly items. If there's a single site and it's an hourly item, you've got the week view. You can switch back to the month view if you want. Any questions on hourly items at this point? Look, I'm assuming you can still hear me. Let's just switch back to the meeting. Yeah, all good. Nice one, thanks. Cool, so that's hourly. We've got weekly and daily, but we won't jump to those yet. What we'll do is we'll jump to per X hours. So this is introducing the concept of block pricing. So it's £1 per 4 hours now. And this is just, there we go, save that and go back as a member. We'll go back to our basket and remove that. And if we now go and borrow this item for 2 hours, which is fine, the 4 hours is pricing. It doesn't remove the ability to borrow it for less. But the pound is per 4 hours. So it's not prorating that £1 down to 50p per 2 hours. It's a block pricing. And if we were to extend this out to, say, I don't know, 2 o'clock, that's £1 for 4 hours. Let's go an extra hour. Let's go 3 o'clock. That's 5 hours. It's flipped up to the next block of £1 per 4 hours. So that's the concept of block pricing. And that's the way it would work per week. So let's go and have a look at an item per week. It's £4 per week on this one. There we are. And we're going to book from today. And we're going to return, it defaults to 1 week because it's a weekly item. But we could say, no, actually, let's pick it up today and return on Saturday. We're still pricing £4 a week, even though we're borrowing for fewer than 1 week, and so on. Let's add that to basket. That's 1 week's charge. The amount shown here is actually the pricing block rather than the borrow block. We have to do one or the other, and I think that seems to be most logical.
So is this block, this block mechanism, is this new? Because it didn't used to be like that, did it? It used to be if you set it to be so much a week and you returned it in 3 days, it would prorata it down.
Yeah, well, we've never had the concept of weekly booking. Previously, you used to do it per 7 days. And that's a difference from a 1 week. So if you do it per 7 days, you can still maintain the pro rata approach. But if you want to move to block booking on a week, you choose borrow per week. Or you could do per 7 days on an item, and you could turn on block pricing here for, if you're going to stay with the dailies, you can turn on block pricing should you want to.
I suppose what we want is like you book for a week, but if they book it for 4 days, it costs the same as a week.
Yeah,
which is what you're saying, but it's flagging to them that they can do that, I suppose.
That's right. I guess that would be in the way you you message your membership, your pricing concept. You know, how do we charge for our items? You could include that in your emails and your web pages that do that. Most libraries, I think, would like that because it allows you to effectively get more utilization of your items, more loads in and out without losing the revenue for it.
Okay, so what you're saying is the block pricing is for the week, but you could book it for 4 days and it would still cost you whatever it was.
The price it came up with.
So it's the communication of that to our members.
Yeah, that's right. I'm wondering if there's another way to make it even clearer in here. Because at the moment, you know, this is 3rd to the 5th, so you're borrowing for 2 days, but you're pricing per week.
I mean, you can just put something like minimum cost is per week. You know, you can sort of, it's minimum charge.
That's another, yes, exactly. So that enables us to have a minimum charge. So if you were going to do £7 per 7 days, it wouldn't go below £7 if you had block pricing.
Yeah.
But with block pricing off, you would have to do it £7 per 1 week. And then that would bring block pricing back in for that item. So let's say that's what your library is set up to do by default at the moment. You know, you've got £10 per 7 days.
Between block pricing for 7 days and block pricing.
That would prorate the price of your items down.
We don't want to do that
for most of your items. But if you wanted to on a single items basis, you could go and you could price that item £4 per week. And then that would say, well, we can't do less than £4 for that item.
Right, that's what we want to do. So we want to avoid the 7 days personally. Yeah.
So even if it is a weekly loan, if you're not open every day, you can still book based on your opening hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here, for example, you know, this library is open every day, so that kind of makes sense. Are any of you multi-site? Is it worth me showing multi-site stuff at this point?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, well, let's leave that because that introduces a whole level of complexity, and I'll cover that in a multi-site webinar. So single site makes it simple.
Yeah, so this block booking is interesting because we did originally look at charging per week, but then backed out of it when we realized that no one books it. People rarely return it exactly on the week boundary. So our nice, tidy pricing structure was just shot to pieces. So yeah, if we can go back to a fee per week, that's potentially interesting.
Great. Well, this allows you to almost soft start if you needed to for a few items, or you could set it on the default, and then it would apply to all items that didn't have this override. Good.
Settings.
So settings, and then loans and reservations, you choose per week instead. So instead of 7 days, you'd go per 1 week. Or multiple weeks. No, some libraries actually do a year, but I don't think any of you guys are at that point. Although your home kit, I don't know if that is something that is related to you guys in Bath.
Not really. No.
They keep it forever.
Great. So we've covered that. We've covered the block pricing on the per day if you wanted to switch to that. What else have we got to look at? We've got the maximum loan period. So previously, there was only one setting for maximum loan period, and that applied to all of your items. But now, if we have a look at our items, you can set maximum per item.
That's brilliant.
So that's quite handy. And if we have a look at this, let's see what we can actually get. I'll remove everything from my basket just so that we don't have any context, as it were, because as soon as you've added something to your basket, you've got a pickup site, you've got a return site, you've got pickup time, return time. So then everything else on that same loan has to follow the same pickup site. You can have different return times, but for a demo, let's just keep it nice and simple. So let's have a simple one. Maximum 7 hours. Here's an item which we can borrow at £1 an hour, but only up to 7 hours. So I'm logged in as a member, and we're going to collect it tomorrow from the library, and we're going to return it on Monday. But clearly we can't do that because the maximum period is 7 hours. If we go to our admin, so we're logged onto this one as admin, borrow it from tomorrow and then return it on Monday, it's just a warning. So you could actually continue with that and add to basket. Don't forget, as admin, you can always change the price. You know, if you wanted to do something special for them, you could do that in the basket.
So admins can override.
They can override the maximum loan period. That's right. I think that's fairly self-explanatory. Oh, extensions. So that's also applied to maximum loan period. Let's see if I have any items on loan. I do, and they're overdue. Here we go. So, oops. This was due back on 8th of March. Crumbs. That was a long time ago. It's going to charge me a bomb, isn't it, this one? Choose a new return date, and it'll say, no way, your maximum borrow period is 28 days. So I can't.
So right. So your maximum loan period doesn't allow you to extend.
Correct.
Beyond that.
So that's a fairly impactful change, I guess. Is previously you could just keep extending. You know, members could borrow stuff all year.
How's
it going to work for us?
So
Well, you
potentially,
have to set
how
it
you choose
like-
that, but you can choose it per item.
We can choose what our maximum loan period is.
You can.
So if we
So-
wanted it to be 2 months, for example.
Can you set different maximum loan periods per membership type?
No.
Isn't it? That's the thing, isn't it?
But that's all of this stuff could be overridden on a per item or a membership type. But as soon as you start doing both, then you've got conflict of interest. Let me figure out how to do that. So something that we're looking at is how to group your members to restrict them or otherwise. So even if they've all got the same membership type, badges would be quite a good way of explaining it. So certain members have got a badge that allows them to borrow chainsaws because they've done a safety course,
Yeah.
or certain members would have a badge that gives them a free extension period, or those kind of modifiers, if you like, that are attached to badges.
Yeah, ours are more badges that stop you doing things rather than let you doing things.
Yeah, but we might be
Yeah.
able to do that then. So
Yeah.
for example,
Yeah, that's it. It feels like we might call them tags, but that might be a way of allowing everybody to have their own little modifications on the overall structure.
Mm.
And that include things like coupons. So you could run a
Yeah.
temporary tag for a week to incentivize memberships, because while that tag's active, you get 10% off, that kind of thing. So I think that's where it's all heading, but we're in definitely the assessment phase of that.
okay, so that's not operational yet.
No, it's not even under development. That's a information gathering, if you like. So, you know, what Georgina's saying there about being able to give certain members a longer period would be a perfect use case for that kind of modifier.
Mm.
Yeah.
But it's quite complicated. So we'll be gathering information for a few months on that.
Yeah, so you just have to do it a different way.
Yeah. I think you just flagged up quite an interesting issue of if people get coupons and things, you know, how do we manage that on,
Coupon.
you know?
Yeah, indeed. We don't have a coupon concept yet. All we've got is an awareness that coupons are desired.
Yeah. Okay.
What we're doing by this piece of work is we've done a load of engineering to make those kind of things easier to implement in the future as well.
Yeah.
Okay, should we move briefly on to buffers?
Yeah.
Do you use buffers, anybody, at the moment?
We've
No,
dipped
you
in and
haven't
out. We've
got-
dipped in and out of buffers,
Okay.
and they create problems. So we go back to no, you know. Well, no, we
Yeah.
do have a buffer, don't we?
No, we don't. We don't have.
So
Well, we haven't used them since I.
okay, we did have a buffer of 24 hours.
Well, I think possibly then what affects this conversation is the ability to have a buffer per item.
Yeah. Yeah.
So perfect example is maybe a tent where you want to dry out a tent,
Mhm.
or if there's something like that has to have electrical inspection or whatever, then you can now apply a buffer per item. So let's say this item has a buffer of 24 hours, but most other items don't. And this is a £1 per day. In fact, we can just go day in the search. Give us that one. Yeah, so we've now added these buffer periods of 24 hours before and after the loan. So somebody couldn't book it
The same day.
until after that buffer. Yeah, that's right. So that would prevent same day borrowing for that specific item.
So how does this affect? I mean, how? So we don't do same day borrowing, but is that because there is a buffer?
Would you like to do same day borrowing?
No.
Well, it's sometimes you want to because somebody has definitely agreed they'll bring it back first thing in the morning, and somebody else wants it that day. So
Okay.
it is quite useful on occasion to have that facility.
Oh yeah, it would be useful to be able to override.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
we do have
So
it.
this is the buffer view for a member where they can't override it. And if we go to the buffer view for admin and we borrow, the buffers are pink, and I can actually borrow this during that buffer as admin, unless you choose to turn off override.
I don't know what we've got our set on then, because you can't do it on the calendar in admin.
So if you go settings and loans and reservations, there's
Yeah.
a setting here to allow admin and staff to override the buffer hours.
Okay.
So if I turn that off,
Settings.
Yeah,
reservations,
loans
settings.
then the
Staff.
buffer goes back to grey because I can't book during that buffer period, even as admin. It's
Yeah.
all blocked out.
Yeah,
But as
so-
soon as I allow admin to override that, then the buffer goes
Oh, so
pink.
we've got yes.
What?
We've got it as yes, but
So this fairly large piece of work mops up a few little bugs that might have been creeping in around the edges around buffers, loan periods, validation, interloan conflicts. Those have all been weeded out,
Okay.
and it's now a lot stricter about the ability, preventing members from booking dates in the past or moving a date to the past or anything like that. We've cleared up with this piece of work. So it's
That's
big
good.
tightening of the net.
So going back to this issue of borrowing on the same day, something coming in. I know, Alan, you insist that people bring things back by 10 o'clock or whatever time it is. Is that right? And then it can be
Yeah,
loaded.
so I've got buffers. Sorry, I've got changeover times active on our site. So the
I can
normal.
demo that if you like.
Yeah.
So this is a current setup with no changeover time. So the library's open from Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And as we saw, the default pickup time is 9 and the default return time is 5. So if you were borrowing for a day, it's actually a day and 8 hours. So it's not actually a day. But if you wanted to set a changeover time, let's say, let's call it midday for every day.
Yep.
And we'll save that. If we now go to borrow an item as a member, let's just go for a fairly standard item and we borrow this item. Instead of now picking up after 9 a.m, we actually have to pick after midday. So even though the site is open earlier, we pick up at 12 and we return by 12. So we'll bring that 8th to the 22nd of October, reserve. And if we go back to that item, you can see that booking I've just made comes back on the 22nd of October. Somebody else could go, you know what, I'm going to borrow from the 22nd of October, same day, but I have to pick up after 12, which is where that previous booking finishes. So that's one way of achieving same day loans, is with that changeover time.
I think ours is more reactive. So for instance, someone might have I don't know, whatever, out on loan, a strimmer, and I've already booked an out on loan, and then it's coming back on, I don't know, Tuesday or whatever, and somebody wants to bring it back the same day that it's going out, but you then can't change the pickup time for the next customer to allow
Okay, I
the
getcha.
next customer,
Yep.
because you've already said they've already booked it, basically.
Sweet. I think I can show you the solution to that.
Okay.
So we'll turn off changeover time now. And we'll refresh this. No, so I can't pick it up after 12. If it was an hourly item, I could.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
this is easy for us to do now. In theory, there's no reason why I shouldn't have a purple box here that says collect after 12. Because you could extend this loan back manually, couldn't you? When the strimmer person phoned up and says, you know, I can bring that back by 10, you could then adjust that to be 10 o'clock.
we could do it. Yeah.
Okay, no, I think we can make that happen.
Look, I can't get my head around it. Sorry, I don't want to bog everyone else down with it, but I just need to have a think about it.
I think I know what you're saying, but the way we get around that currently in the current system is by creating some custom hours just for that day, and then it enables us to lend it on that day with the custom hours. So we have done it in the past where it's going to be back by 6 p.m, but our changeover time's 10 a.m. So we just create a one-day custom hour to allow that to happen.
We don't.
Now that there is a time. Oh no, it isn't.
No, but I can see I think I get what you need, Georgina, there, and
I think we don't do it like you, Alan. We're just open at 10 and 1, and you can bring it back. Yeah, you can bring it back any time.
But there are certain items that we could,
but no one can pick it up on the same day at the moment. So I think.
But there are certain items that people do want to do that with. and they go, oh, I can't borrow it on that day.
It's normally retrospectively though. So
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
I think we can make it happen, because
Yeah.
if it's coming back by 12, in theory, somebody else could pick it up at 12.
well, whatever.
So
Well, yeah, I guess.
unless
at
you
the moment
wanted to put a buffer on that particular item for an hour.
Okay.
So really short buffers of up to an hour, you can't go shorter than an hour, are now possible.
Okay, but you have to know what's happening beforehand, right?
In what way?
Sorry, I'm just not getting my head around it.
Well, the
So-
thing is that when people are booking them remotely, they think they can't book it because it's booked out until that day.
Yep.
But they're going, oh well, I want it on that day, but I can't book it because we can't. It's already booked out. But I'm just thinking that if there are certain items where, how do we get over that problem of being able to book it on the same day, like the carpet cleaner, for example?
Extending really.
So that's what this fix would then show. So here's an item which is due back on the 22nd at
Yeah.
midday. Once we've fixed this release, then there'd be this extra slot where they could collect in the same
Yeah.
day at the time that the previous loan finished.
Yeah. It's
So
about
if
using the
that's
two different time
5
slots.
PM.
Really. Yeah.
I suppose, sorry, just one last attempt at this. So my thought is someone's booked something from Tuesday for a week.
Yep.
And that for us, they can come in from any time from 10 o'clock to pick it up. And it's reserved. Somebody else says, oh, I want to book that thing.
On Tuesday. The following Tuesday.
No, I want to book that thing previous to that. And I want to return it on Tuesday because you're not open on Monday. And we're like, but it's going out at 10. Will you? And this is how we do it at the moment. Do you promise to bring it back at 10? And they go, yeah, we promise. And then they don't. And it hasn't allowed us to extend it. It's, I don't know.
So what I'm
Sorry,
I'm
I'm
saying is
probably
that
not
we've
being
got
very
these
clear.
two options of time
How do you change over time?
that we can actually say, yeah, this person, if it's you can book it until 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, the two slots, and then they have to bring it back then, and the other person can book it from 11 o'clock out.
Yeah,
We don't use
like
those. We don't use
that would
those.
work fairly well for you. If you put your changeover time an hour after you open, that gives people an hour's grace to return items, but then pickups will always be after 11 as well.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have a
Worth
think
a
about
go.
that. We don't
Yeah.
need to talk about it now, do we?
So that's the concept. Those are the tools you've got available in
Okay.
here. Does anybody else have any other thoughts on that concept? No, all good. It becomes more applicable when you've got hourly loans, because you could have 3 different loans for the same item on the same day. So if we have a look at,
Don't want to go down that road.
yeah,
Gosh, what would that be?
let's have a look. Have we got, which was the item that we restricted to a certain site? Well, if we don't use that, if you guys are not looking at hourlies, then I won't go into the detail there, unless you'd like me to, in which case just shout.
No, I mean,
No.
what's happened in the past? Somebody's come in and they want to borrow, classically they set of screwdrivers, because they're moving out of a house and they're changing the bed and they can't do, so they want it just for that day. And we've never really been able to charge them because there is no charge for that period. But now we can set a time for that, can't we?
You could.
We
Yeah,
can
absolutely.
override everything and go, right, fine, you're borrowing it from 1 until 4. Great.
Yeah. So let's run that use case, run that example. So say it's normally a per week item.
Mhm.
Here we go, £4 a week. You want to just lend this for 2 hours tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So you can go borrow, let's collect after 11, because that's when our changeover time is. So collect 11 o'clock, bring it back 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
In fact, this also needs to be the 4th, doesn't it?
Mhm.
There. So what I've done is I've actually borrowed it for a week. So we've got a pickup here and a return there. And it's not letting me do that. So I need to check how that works, but we'll start with collect after 11, return on the 11th. It should let me do that, shouldn't it?
Mhm.
Should let me bring it forwards.
So
Wonder
do you
if
have to
add-
go back and change something else in your admin?
No, I think we've just identified a workflow that doesn't work for a member there. And this is part of what we're doing today, is trying to identify these workflows that we need to finish before releasing. So let's see if we can do it as an admin. Yeah, so this item I can lend tomorrow, well, from the 11th, from 11 a.m. to, let's go 12 p.m. So it's an hour. And now it'll do that. So by the time you see this on your account, you'll be able to run a daily item for a few hours, should you want to override it. They'd still be charged at the daily price if you're going to turn block pricing on.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would prorate it down to pretty much nothing if you were just going to lend for an hour. So that will be a possibility. You can always play with it once it's on to see if that works for your library or not. So I think that covers everything I wanted to talk about. We've looked at buffers, block pricing, maximum. We haven't looked at late return fees or extending. Well, we looked at extending, how you can't now extend beyond your maximum loan period.
So if that's the case, when you say you can't, you mean the customer can't, or we
Yeah,
can?
admin can. Admin can go beyond that.
So if we were doing block pricing per week, and somebody wanted to extend
Dehumidifier.
for
3 more weeks.
3 more weeks, then we could just extend it and it would charge per week 3 times.
That's right.
3.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
wanted to extend it for 3 days, it would still charge the week because we've
Yep.
block priced it. But that
So
would mean,
week is always block pricing.
yeah. So, and that's kind of what we're doing anyway.
Yeah.
So, but they have to, they can't do it. They have to ring or email and say, can you extend this for us?
Well, they could extend up to your 28-day themselves. They could add 3 more weeks subsequently.
They
But then when
could.
it gets to 28 days overall, it would stop them doing further.
Why could they extend it to 28 days?
If 28 days is your maximum loan period,
Right. Okay.
that
So,
becomes a hard end stop.
okay. So but if our maximum loan period is 2 weeks and they want to go over 2 weeks, they have to call up or email. We do it over the thing and it charges for the extra week. Okay.
And the big difference is you can now choose that per item.
That's great. And also that will help with
Per
those-
item. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
that will help with the crowd supporters as well, because they won't be able to extend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The problem we were having was our proud supporters are extending willy-nilly, left, right and centre, high cost items, you know, hogging them, if you like. I know that sounds a bit cynical, but it's true. And we couldn't see that unless we could miss that somebody had a dehumidifier for 3 months on a proud supporter membership. So now that they have to ring up to say they want to extend is a good thing for us.
But
Okay.
also they don't care because they're not paying. So
Yeah.
they don't matter. They don't care if they're late. Well, then, debt a pound was a pound, but if they were to pay the proper cost. Yeah.
So that's good.
That's the other thing this will give you as well. It will prevent them from extending past the loan maximum period
Mm-hmm.
and not paying the late fees. So
Yeah.
if they've gone over the 28 days, which is the maximum period, they won't be able to do anything about it other than pay the fees when they come in, or talk to you about extending for that period that they were late.
Yeah.
But that's
so,
an
yeah.
interesting point, because at the moment our late fees are £1 a day.
No,
but
yes. Yeah.
But if you're borrowing
Mm.
a super duper tool that is more expensive,
You're losing.
then we're losing money because somebody else could have borrowed it for a
Yep.
week. And
So,
actually, all they're doing is paying £3.
This is what happened last week, but I
Yeah.
actually charged them the
Yeah,
actual price.
Yeah.
so how about we create a super duper tool and we're going to charge it, and instead of, how much is your super duper tool charged at?
That might be £20 a week.
Yeah, 20 or 25, depending on what it is. If there aren't many of them, but there are. They're
Okay, so £25 per week.
Gazebo.
So you'd want to charge
Gazebo,
it
that's a classic one,
as
the
a daily,
gazebo.
a daily rate. You would want to charge
You'd
it the
want to
equivalent
charge
of a daily
them
rate,
a
wouldn't you?
loan and a late fee of per day according to the loan.
God, that's really getting
fee.
complicated.
Well, it's not really, because he's going to do it on there. Yeah.
Let's see how it goes. Hopefully this is useful for everybody. I can't type gazebo today. And we're going to borrow for a week from today. 1 week, £25. That's fine. And reserve it. And then it's not going to introduce a late return fee because that is in the future. So we're going to do another one in the past, but I can't book in the past because I'm a member. So I'm going to do the same thing as an admin and create a retrospective loan that is now overdue. So let's go for somebody called Joe. We'll go for Joe Black and we'll browse as Joe. And then we will look for the gazebo. And we're going to lend it to Joe back in September. So this blue box says I've already got items in my basket. Let's just clear that out so that that's all gone. Right, so gazebo, borrow from, and let's go back. Let's say he was from the 5th of August, 5th of September to 12th of September. That's fine. Okay, and reserve. Yep, I'm sure. And we check that out, then it'll become overdue immediately. It's fine. So on check-in, on our pound per day, it will suggest £21 fee because that's our. So I don't think that's changed. That's the same at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, that's just a pound a day. But how long have they had it for?
It's 21 days late now.
Oh dear, it's going to cost a fortune.
But I suppose you want to charge more if it was just 2 days late.
So let's just pretend that it's only 3 days late. That's what we want.
Okay, yeah. So it would still just then charge 3 days.
I charge the full price
In
because
fact, that might be block pricing.
yeah, well, when someone's brought in something late, they've deprived someone else and deprived us from earning an income. So if it's £5 a day, then they pay £5 a day.
So you charge it daily then?
Yes.
That's our problem. That because we don't charge daily.
What I'd like to do is to be able to offer, if possible. I know you can you can manually change a price. So someone wants to borrow something for 7 days as a let's say it's £5 a day, and so they want it for 5 days, so it's going to be £25. I know that you can go manual and say, hey, look, I'm going to do an offer. I'm going to knock £10 off, so you can change the price. My question is, can that be automated so that when they do a booking, it's an incentive for them to, oh, if I book 5 days, I can get it cheaper than 3 days. So is there an automated process for that, rather than me having to go in manually when they come in?
So you charge per day. You're like the London model.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not yet. So I'm thinking it's that effectively long-term discount concept. Is that what you're saying, or is it all about reducing?
It's to encourage people to even if it's like I say we're a daily. Sometimes we have a mix of daily and weekly and a few days. But carpet cleaners are very, very popular. And when people borrow, they typically borrow like for 3 days, and they're maybe £5 a day. But to generate a bit more income, maybe we can give them an extra, if like sort of for an extra 2 days, you can get it like maybe £1 a day or £2 per day discount. Because when they do that manually and give it and discount it manually, but if it was automated, it would be great if that option was there.
Okay, great. Let's call that volume discounting.
Okay.
Or yes, it's not in place at the moment, but it's something that I've had a few requests on. So I'll definitely be in touch with that
Very good.
as
Very
we
good.
evaluate it and plan it.
I have to go. I have to close up
Okay.
and scoot off. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for joining.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
And we'll do as many more of these as we can. I mean, ideally every week. So
Thank you.
good.
And, the recording, I'd like to be able to show my team of volunteers this. So how do I access the recording?
We will put it on our YouTube channel and we'll share it on Facebook as well.
Thanks. Thanks so much. Thanks.
Brilliant.
Great.
Thank you.
Fine.
Bye-bye.
Let's just jump back into this gazebo for you guys in Bath as well. If I turned block pricing on, this is the £25 minimum price. It could potentially suggest that £25 is the fee, but that seems quite steep.
If you're a day late, it's a bit too much. Yeah.
It is, yeah. But I think that's where charging the late fee is always going to be something that has a little bit of admin
Discretionary.
discretion.
Yeah, it is discretionary. But it's very annoying when, they've been told that late fees are £1 a day, for example. And then, they've got a gazebo and it's 3 days late. And, it's caused a huge amount of inconvenience. So it's just overcoming that.
So something I think Alan might have suggested was to actually prorate the item fee.
Yeah.
So instead of it being just fixed across the whole library, if it's 25, let's call it £7 a week. If it's 2 days late, it would be £2.
Yeah.
And if it's 7 days late, it's another £7. So you're actually just prorating the late fee.
But
How
we
do we
would
do that, though?
Yeah,
How do we do that?
we would also therefore, but not want to go below £1 a day. We
Okay,
want to
gotcha.
get up, but we don't
No,
want
you
to end
can't
up
do
asking
both
for
ways.
47 pence.
Yeah, you
I mean,
can't do both ways.
The issue we have is that it's obviously depriving someone of a week loan.
Yeah.
And if they've booked it for a specific event, and then we've lost
Lost
that
the
income.
whole line.
So we always do discuss that with the person when they come in and say, look, you've prevented another organisation or another person from being able to put on this event because of this. And they're usually pretty good, and will usually pay the full cost of the lost income to the library. So
You mean that's you're bringing back something late?
yeah, but it's one of those things. It's always you've got to weigh it up with the person, I think, and decide how far you want to go with it.
Well, it helps if the system kind of sets the stage for that discussion.
Yeah.
So if we added a loan fee per item, you could say that the gazebo was £5 a day. That would certainly solve that particular situation.
You mean an overdue fee per item, or a loan?
An overdue fee.
An overdue fee per item.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
It does add extra complexity, and if we
Yeah.
can actually just do it by prorating the fee.
Yeah. Well, and then you could choose either an amount per day or the pro rata, or
We would rather just introduce one concept where all items are prorated fee for overdue.
So you couldn't put any boundaries on that and say that all items over £7 a week.
That becomes very subjective because if you're borrowing a van, it's £200 a day. And we've got people doing all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So,
I think it'd be up to us to analyse how much in the library we've got for under £7 a week.
Yeah,
that's our
I mean,
own.
one thing I've never done is charge the late fee. It's kind of a stick I hover above them, but I've never actually charged it. And the rare occasion where they do bring something back late, it's a discussion, and they usually end up paying more than what would have been the late fee anyway. So it is a subjective one, I think.
Okay.
Mm.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because you want to help people, but also you've got to make that revenue.
Yeah.
Or you put a deposit on something like a gazebo, and if it's late,
That's-
take
yeah,
money out of the
more-
deposit.
more
that-
hassle
yeah,
then. More hassle, less hassle. That's what we want. Good.
Useful
Okay, that's all
discussion.
great.
I think we'll
Lovely.
probably call that a day
Yeah.
because we're nearly at an hour.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much.
I'll stop the recording there, and then we can say our goodbyes.
Goodbye.